Alright, so uh, let us complete our ball bounce animation by creating a movie. First thing we need to do is assign a material to the ball. So we'll go to select the ball, right click, assign new material. We will be rendering using the Arnold renderer. So we'll go to shader and assign a standard surface shader. Okay. Now, if you drag this attribute editor big, go to the end, and you can see that the base color is white, so we will make it red. Okay, we will leave everything else the way it is so that you get a nice shiny ball. Okay, so we'll keep things simple. Now what we need to do is we need to create a plane and a background, right? So we'll create a plane, polymodeling plane, and we will simply scale it big. Okay, so if you click on the red arrow here, uh, then it scales in one direction. If you scale in the blue, it scales in that direction, but if you scale here, it scales on both the directions. Okay, the camera is going to be here, so we can move this slightly to that side. Okay, now we will hit the Control D to duplicate this plane, and we'll hit the J key so that it increments at 15 degrees, and then we will rotate it at 90 degrees. Okay, that plane will move back. If you zoom out, it will also move up. Okay, so you can see that we created a simple backdrop, and then we will leave the default gray color so that the red ball stands out very well. Okay, now we'll go to create, cameras, camera, then go to panels. We are in the perspective view. Okay, so in the perspective we'll change that to camera view. Okay, and then we'll slightly move it down. So now what we need to do is we need to make sure that the ball is visible when it is up, and at frame number 12 it should be visible when it is at the bottom, and there's a lot of foreground here, so we need to bring it here, then it goes up, so now you can zoom in. Okay, then you can further move out. So you just have to make sure that it's on top here and it's on bottom here. Alright, we can also go to view, camera settings, and go to resolution gate. Click on resolution gate, and we will know what exactly is getting rendered. So again, now the space increased on top and increased on bottom as well. So we can further zoom in, and now the ball looks good. If you hit the space bar and go to the top view, you can see that the camera is off-centered. So you can leave it off-centered if you want, or center it here so that there is some rotation to the camera also. Y, so we can add 0. The horizon is straight. Okay, so you get this, and now if you hit the render button, which is here, everything will be black because there are no lights in the scene. Alright, what we will do is we'll go to Arnold, the last option, and we will use a sky dome. Okay, it will simply add some basic light and also shadows to the scene. Now it is taking some time and the animation is grainy, so I'm not going to go in detail about how to fix that, but we will just use this. If you render the frame number 12, I wanted to show you the shadow. The light gives us nice soft shadow at the bottom also. Okay, so this looks good. Now if you click on this button here, you will see motion blur. Okay, but when you render, you don't see any motion blur. So if I hit the render button, there is no motion blur. Okay, so to add motion blur, what we need to do is we need to go to render settings. Okay, we'll go to render settings here, this one. Okay, and then go to Arnold renderer, find motion blur and enable it. Okay, and once you enable the motion blur, then if you hit the render button, you will see motion blur in your render. Okay, so that gives us motion blur as well. So you can further enhance your animation using motion blur. It makes the animation look smooth, the motion blur. Alright, now the render settings to create the movie. So we'll go to common. Right now it is rendering at a particular path. So what you need to do is you need to go to edit, change project image directory, and then you can see that there is some location here. You can create a new and name it ball bound and decide where you want to save it. Okay, if you want to go to desktop, I'll put it in my folder where I save my work. Okay, so it will be saved in the Maya animation directory named ball bounce 2. Okay, and I'll accept it. So now it's going to save under animation ball bounce 2 images folder. We will name this movie or the image ball bounce. Okay, image format is JPEG and frame extension will be name, number and extension. Okay, so it will save it as ball bounce 0001. So if you make this padding 2, it will be 01. Because we have less than 100 frames, we can use a padding of 2. So we'll render from 1 to 24 and the image will be saved as ball bounce 01 to ball bounce 024. Alright, everything else will be same. And then now to render, what you have to do is you have to go to rendering, render sequence. Okay, so if you click on render sequence, it will start rendering. No settings need to be changed, so just click on the render sequence box and it will render the 24 images. I have already done that, so I will show you those images. So if you go to Maya animation, this is where I clicked, and in the images you can see that there are the 24 images. So what you need to do is go to After Effects. I'll go to create a new project. Alright, in After Effects, right click, import file. Okay, again select the folder, so it's Rahul, YouTube, Maya animation ball bounce images. Now we'll just select the first image of the sequence because it is importing as an image sequence and as a footage. So the entire movie will come in. Now there are two tabs here. One is the none and the render queue. So we need to be in the none tab. This is where the layer manager. So simply drag the footage down to create a layer, and then it will also create a composition named ball bounce, and this is the composition window. So you can see the composition, and if you hit the space bar, now you see the ball bounce. Okay, so you can control D this 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times, so it will bounce 6 times. We'll go to composition settings, and then we will increase the duration. So you can see that the 960 by 540 is the size of the image that we rendered. Frame rate is 24. In After Effects, if you see that the frame rate is not 24, you can go to Edit, Preferences, Import, and it has to say 24. By default it is 30, so make sure that you save it as 24 frames per second. Okay, and then composition settings. The length, which is 1 second, we will make it as 6 seconds. So this here is where you scale the timeline. So you can see that it's 1 second and then the timeline is 6 seconds long. I can click and drag to select all these. Go to animation, keyframe assistant, sequence layer. We don't want overlap, so we'll just say okay. And now if you hit the space bar, the animation will be looped for 6 times. Okay, then you go to File, Export, Add to Render Queue. Here we will save it again. Go to the same path, animation, ball bounce, and then I'll go to movies and then I'll call it ball bounce 2 because I've already done it once. And here, don't worry about the .avi file. In looseless, here we can decide what type of file format we want. So there are many options. Either I'll select the QuickTime movie, and the format options I'm using MPEG-4 compressor. Okay, so that MPEG-4 compressor creates a small file size, but the quality is good. All right, then you hit the render button, and it's going to render the 6 seconds of animation. If you go to the directory where you saved your work, you'll be able to see your ball bounce. See, this was the first one, and this is what I created just now. Okay, and you get the ball bounce.